Hollywood's golden age shimmered with silver screen perfection. Immaculate hairlines, dashing silhouettes, and stars so flawless they felt carved from fantasy. But what if beneath the glitter there was a carefully guarded illusion? Behind the top hats, fedoras, and cascading curls hid a truth rarely whispered. What happens when the myth of beauty meets the reality of baldness? Today, we unmask 17 legendary stars who wore their wigs like armor. 1. Humphrey Bogart. The image was unmistakable. A trench coat, a cigarette glowing in the shadows, and that trademark slicked-back hair. Humphrey Bogart didn't just play hard-boiled heroes. He was one. Or so it seemed. But beneath the fedora and smoky mystique, Bogart was waging a quiet war with time. His hairline began retreating in his 30s, long before Casablanca cemented his legend. According to archives from The Hollywood Reporter and memoirs by makeup artist Perk Westmore, Bogart's iconic look relied on custom toupees by the early 1940s. For the Maltese Falcon, a discreet piece was crafted to mimic his natural hair texture. Subtle, but essential. His famous fedora wasn't just a noir flourish. It was a distraction, strategically deployed to mask a thinning crown. Bogart leaned into the secret with humor. Lauren Bacall once recalled in her memoir By Myself that he'd joke about his rug during late-night poker games, his confidence untouched by what others might hide. Off-screen, he managed his illusion carefully, avoiding roles that demanded bare heads, insisting on backlighting, and working closely with cinematographers to hide the line between real and artificial. He wasn't hiding vanity, he was preserving a myth. Bogart knew that Hollywood didn't just sell stories, it sold perfection. And in the rough-and-tumble world of 1940s, masculinity, a full head of hair, was part of the currency. Still, it wasn't his hair that defined him. It was that unmistakable presence. In the end, Bogart proved you don't need follicles to be fierce, just fire. 2. Elizabeth Taylor. When Cleopatra unveiled in 1963, Elizabeth Taylor's raven hair cascaded like royalty, framing violet eyes that could stop time. Her look was otherworldly, regal, flawless. But under the weight of Egyptian gold and cinematic glory, there was a quieter truth. Taylor's iconic hair was often borrowed, woven by artisans to mask damage done in the name of fame. From her early days in national velvet, Taylor's dark tresses were styled, dyed, teased, and torched by relentless studio demands. By her late 20s, hair thinning had set in, aggravated by chronic scalp stress and hormone treatments. According to Hollywood makeup artist Alberto De Rossi, whose interviews are preserved in the Academy's oral history archives, Taylor began relying on wigs regularly by the time she took on Cleopatra's crown. Studio memos from 20th Century Fox reveal she had over a dozen custom wigs for the film, some sleek, some voluminous, each crafted to match the lighting, costume, and mood of a scene. Off-screen, Taylor embraced wigs for convenience and versatility. They became her armor, allowing her to shift between goddess and girl next door without further damaging what remained of her natural hair. Richard Burton once remarked in private letters, later published posthumously, that her ability to transform so effortlessly was divine trickery. But to Taylor, wigs weren't deception. They were survival. In an era that equated femininity with flawless hair, she chose illusion to keep her image intact and her spirit unshaken. 3. Fred Astaire. Fred Astaire didn't just dance, he floated. Every glide, every tap was a poem. In Top Hat, Swing Time, and The Bandwagon, his elegance seemed effortless. But beneath the polished choreography and gleaming top hats, a quiet deception kept his appearance as perfect as his rhythm. Fred Astaire was balding, and his wig never missed a beat. His hair loss began in his early 30s, just as his career skyrocketed. Choreographer Hermes Pan, in an interview archived in the Smithsonian's dance collections, revealed that Astaire's toupees were marvels of engineering. Lightweight, sweat-resistant, and anchored to survive spins and sweat. Studio wardrobe logs show his hairpieces were updated with each new production, tailored for durability and shine. Astaire never shied from a top hat. That wasn't just style, it was strategy. His toupees, often subtle variations on his natural side part, were so well blended that even dance partner Ginger Rogers admitted in her 1991 memoir that she barely noticed when the real hair ended and the illusion began. He once joked about his upstairs dance partner, referring to the wig that had been with him through 1,000 routines. But it wasn't a crutch. It was part of the costume, just like his tuxedo or tap shoes. In a world where movement was magic and appearance part of the act, Fred Astaire's toupee helped keep the curtain from falling on perfection. 4. Jean Harlo. She was the original blonde bombshell. John Harlo's hair didn't just shine, it shimmered like platinum under Hollywood lights. In Platinum Blonde and Dinner at 8, her look defined an era of glamour. But that glow came at a steep cost. Behind the shimmering illusion was a scalp that suffered, tormented by beauty's demands. Harlo's hair was subjected to relentless bleaching with ammonia and peroxide. In the 1930s, beauty columns from Photoplay and Modern Screen, stylists raved about her technique. But privately, the toll was devastating. By her mid-20s, Harlo's natural hair had begun thinning rapidly. MGM studio memos from 1933 confirmed that by Bombshell she had switched to custom wigs for most scenes. These weren't crude hairpieces. They were handcrafted by Max Factor's team, made from blended human and synthetic hair to mimic her famous luster. Directors like George Cukor choreographed camera angles to hide seams, while publicity departments insisted her glow was 100% natural. Even Clark Gable, her frequent co-star, mentioned in a letter uncovered in a 1990s biography that Harlo's styling sessions exhausted her. She rarely discussed it, perhaps ashamed, perhaps simply resigned. Her wigs allowed her to perform with the agony of further damage and to uphold the golden facade her fans adored. Her sudden death at just 26 left the world mourning a legend. Only then did whispers surface of her real hair, of her quiet battles. But by then, the image had taken root. John Harlo, immortal in platinum, untouchable and eternal. 5. Frank Sinatra. He was the chairman of the board. Old blue eyes. Frank Sinatra didn't just sing. He seduced the world with a whisper and a wink. His slicked-back hair and tilted fedora were as iconic as his velvet croon. But under the glow of nightclub lights and stage spotlights, Sinatra's hairline was writing its own quiet swan song. By the early 1950s, Sinatra's temples were retreating fast. According to Sinatra, The Life, he maintained a trusted toupee guy on call, ready for stage emergencies and studio demands. Records from Capitol Studios show he wore hairpieces designed by Max Factor himself, fitted with special adhesives to hold under sweat, heat, and humidity. Dean Martin once teased Sinatra in a televised roast, joking about his helmet, but Sinatra always wore it with confidence. Each toupee was custom-colored, jet black for his film roles in From Here to Eternity, salt and pepper for the older, suave image in The Manchurian Candidate. His personal makeup artist, Charles Schramm, told Variety in a 1974 interview that Sinatra had wig checks as often as mic checks. The secret wasn't so much hidden as it was protected by lighting, by hats, and by sheer charisma. Sinatra knew that mystique mattered. "If the hair goes," he once quipped at a private party, "the legend might follow." But the truth was simple. His voice, his charm, and his command of the stage made him immortal. The toupee? That was just window dressing. 6. Vivien Lee Scarlett. O'Hara's curls were as defiant as the woman who wore them. In Gone with the Wind, Vivien Lee's hair framed her in fire, poised, proud, unforgettable. But away from the plantations and corsets, Lee's life was far from polished. Beneath those lush locks was a scalp marked by illness, stress, and the slow retreat of youth. Her battle with bipolar disorder and tuberculosis, detailed in Hugo Vickers's biography Vivien Lee, left her body and her hair fragile. By the 1940s, her hair had begun thinning visibly, forcing studios to turn to wigs to maintain her screen presence. A streetcar named Desire in 1951 featured a blonde wig crafted to echo Blanche Dubois' unraveling psyche, while darker styles graced her performance in Anna Karenina. Costume designer Lucinda Ballard, in Theatre Archives from the 1970s, described Lee's wigs as delicate armor, designed to mimic the natural sheen of her chestnut hair. Lee embraced them for roles, but in private, letters to close friends revealed an aching vulnerability about losing her feminine identity. Still, she never let it show on screen. With every glance and every gesture, she owned the room. Her wigs weren't hiding weakness. They were part of the performance. In a world where actresses were only as valuable as their youth, Lee used illusion to survive. Her beauty wasn't fake. It was fortified. 7. Frederick March. To audiences, Frederick March was the perfect gentleman. Sophisticated, poised, every hair in place, whether he was transforming into Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or debating morality in Inherit the Wind. But off-screen, March was locked in a quiet confrontation with his hairline. His balding began in the late 1930s, just as his star power surged. Makeup artist Mel Burns, in notes preserved at the UCLA Film and Television Archive, described March's shift from comb-overs to full toupees by the early 40s. These wigs weren't flashy. They were so subtle that even co-stars rarely knew. In The Best Years of Our Lives, his character's weariness mirrored his own discomfort with aging. According to a 1980 biography by Charles Hyam, March privately struggled with his changing appearance, but remained committed to maintaining his dignity on screen. His wigs were part of that armor. He collaborated with wardrobe designers to ensure each toupee matched the era and emotion of the character. Lighter brown for war-weary veterans, graying temples for elder statesmen. As time marched on, so did Frederick, never letting the illusion slip, even as time tried to rewrite him. His greatness lay in making every role and every hairpiece feel entirely authentic. 8. Rita Hworth. Rita Hworth was fire incarnate. With auburn waves that cascaded like a flame in Gilda, she captivated millions. Her image, sultry, confident, untouchable, defined the pin-up era. But that glorious hair? It was more fiction than fact. The truth begins with pain. In an attempt to correct her low forehead, Columbia Pictures demanded electrolysis to raise her hairline, permanently altering her scalp. As detailed in Barbara Leaming's If This Was Happiness, the procedure, combined with years of harsh dyeing, left her hair brittle and thin. By the mid-1940s, wigs became a necessity. Her hairpieces were handcrafted by Columbia's wardrobe department, auburn masterpieces that shifted tones under Technicolor lights. Gwen Wakeling, costume designer for CoverGirl, described in a 1960s interview how each strand was hand-knotted to create seamless movement on camera. Hworth was quiet about the toll. Friends quoted in "The Time, the Place, and the Woman" said she felt trapped in her own illusion. But the wigs allowed her to remain the fantasy Hollywood built around her. In truth, the illusion made her immortal. Hairlines can falter, but screen legends never fade. 9. Laurence Olivier. To watch Laurence Olivier was to witness transformation incarnate. In Hamlet, he brooded with wind-swept elegance. In Richard III, his jagged crown cut through tyranny and treachery. But his real talent wasn't just in embodying kings, it was in masking what time had taken from him. By his 40s, Olivier's hair was in steady retreat. According to Laurence Olivier, a biography, he turned to elaborate wigs for stage and screen, collaborating with theatrical wig makers to match every nuance of his characters. Anthony Mendelsohn, a renowned costume designer, detailed in a 1970s theater journal how Olivier's hairpieces were crafted not just for realism, but for emotion. Sleek and romantic for Wuthering Heights, unkempt and tortured for Othello, balding and brutal for King Lear. Each piece was a mask and a mirror. Olivier once said in a BBC interview, "An actor's mask is his truth." For him, wigs were a means of spiritual entry into the soul of a role. They didn't just cover baldness, they uncovered character. When his hairline vanished, his legacy deepened. What mattered wasn't what grew naturally. It was what he wore with purpose. 10. Lana Turner. Lana Turner was the scandalous siren of the 1940s. Her blonde curls oozed sensuality in films like The Postman Always Rings Twice, seducing both the camera and the headlines. But the polished perfection was carefully maintained and increasingly artificial. Turner's hair suffered from a Hollywood ritual of abuse, constant bleaching, curling, and styling, day after day, set after set. By her late 20s, the damage was undeniable. Biographers in Lana, the Lady, the Legend, 1982, report that by Ziegfeld Girl, wigs became her behind-the-scenes staple. Studio records from MGM document a growing inventory of hairpieces, each customized for length, volume, and mood. Sleek for courtroom drama, voluminous for romantic tragedy. One windy shoot even exposed an unnatural hairline, sparking rumors, quickly squashed by studio publicists. Turner played it cool. In a letter shared by co-star John Garfield's family, she reportedly laughed off a wig slip during a kissing scene. But the mask stayed on. Her beauty was maintained not just through grace, but through grit. Because in Tinseltown, appearances weren't everything. They were everything. 11. Errol Flynn. He swung from chandeliers, dueled in moonlight, and romanced every heroine on screen. Errol Flynn was Hollywood's ultimate swashbuckler, untamed, daring, and effortlessly handsome. But beneath that tousled mane and dashing smile was a truth the studio kept under lock and key. Flynn began balding before he hit his 30s. His biographer, Charles Hyam, in Errol Flynn, The Untold Story, 1980, confirmed the early signs of hair loss emerged during Captain Blood. Warner Brothers responded swiftly. By The Adventures of Robin Hood, his wigs were reinforced with special adhesives to withstand wind machines, sword fights, and waterfall plunges. Wardrobe logs describe multiple variations: seafarer style for the Seahawk, rakish waves for romantic scenes, and battle-tattered versions for action-heavy shots. One gusty mishap nearly revealed the illusion, saved only by a quick-thinking grip. Flynn himself was flippant in private. Olivia de Havilland recalled in her memoir how Flynn once joked about scalp insurance, but never publicly. His image as the roguish hero depended on keeping the illusion airtight. For fans, he was forever the wild adventurer. For Flynn, the wig was just another costume, one that let him leap across screens while time quietly chased from behind. 12th. Marlene Dietrich. She wasn't just a woman. She was a spectacle. Marlene Dietrich's face shimmered like a porcelain mask, her platinum hair glowing under studio lights, her voice oozing decadence. But her otherworldly beauty was no accident. It was calculated, constructed, and her wigs were a crucial piece of the puzzle. By her early 30s, Dietrich's natural hair had begun thinning from constant bleaching and tight styling. In Marlene, 1989, a biography by her daughter Maria Riva, the actress's battle with her hair and control unfolds with brutal honesty. Dietrich turned to wigs not out of shame but artistry. Her pieces were sculptural, custom-built by German and Hollywood wig-makers alike. In Morocco, her masculine bob matched her boundary-breaking character. In Shanghai Express, her curls bounced with fabricated light. She worked closely with cinematographer Lee Garms to ensure every strand caught light, just so, often modifying wigs on set. To her, wigs weren't camouflage, they were weaponry. In a 1960s Vogue interview, she said, "Beauty is a painting, not a photograph." She saw herself as an illusionist, her wigs part of her stagecraft. Marlene Dietrich didn't hide behind wigs, she created herself through them, one artful strand at a time. 13. Carrie Grant. No one did elegance like Carrie Grant. Whether running across rooftops or wooing Audrey Hepburn, he exuded effortless sophistication. His jet-black hair, always in place, became as iconic as his polished suits. But by the 1940s, that hair was more set-piece than natural feature. Grant's receding hairline is carefully noted in Carrie Grant, a biography, 2004. Rather than surrender to time, he turned to discreet toupees, often collaborating with RKO's top wig makers. The hairpieces were subtle, refined rather than theatrical, ensuring his signature style remained undisturbed. For his Girl Friday, he wore a sleek, side-parted toupee. In An Affair to Remember, the piece was fuller, complementing the older romantic hero image. According to Katharine Hepburn, who spoke about Grant in a 1980s interview, he was obsessive about his presentation, often conducting mirror checks between scenes. Lighting technicians used soft focus and backlight, ensuring no unnatural shadow revealed the secret. Grant avoided shirtless roles, choosing to remain buttoned up in every sense. But he never saw it as deception, just maintenance. A star was an image, and his had to be impeccable. Even when the man faded, the myth remained intact. That was Cary Grant's gift, and his pact with the camera. 14. Bette Davis. Bette Davis stared down the world with those eyes, sharp, commanding, untamed. In All About Eve, she was regality in motion. But as age advanced, Hollywood's expectations didn't retreat. Davis, ever defiant, met the industry's obsession with youth head-on, by wearing wigs as weapons. Her battle with hair loss, outlined in her memoir, The Lonely Life, 1962, stemmed from decades of harsh styling, tight buns, and chronic stress. By the 1950s, the wigs became permanent fixtures, not for glamour, but for control. Edith Head, legendary costume designer, described Davis's wigs in Variety as characters in themselves. For Jezebel, her curls spoke of seduction. For Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, her tangled mess screamed madness. Davis insisted each wig be hand-fitted to her bone structure, rejecting anything that felt false. She once wrote in a letter to her publisher, "I don't wear a wig to pretend I'm younger. I wear it to stay in the fight." And fight she did, against ageism, sexism, and the industry's cruelty. Her wigs weren't tricks, they were truth. That survival in Hollywood required armor, and hers came in curls and pins and pride. 15. Danny Kaye. He danced, he sang, he spun in whirlwinds of slapstick and sincerity. Danny Kaye was joy incarnate, his ginger mop bouncing with every punchline. But behind the comedy, his hair was slipping away, a truth he masked not with shame, but with style. By the 1950s, Kaye's hairline had receded significantly, though few noticed. In Danny Kaye, King of Jesters, 1991, biographer David Koenig noted the star began using toupees during White Christmas, and Hans Christian Andersen. Studio wardrobe logs from Paramount confirm he had multiple wigs, each tailored for the rigors of performance. Kaye's wigs were built to last, red and tousled for the court jester, brushed and tidy for knock on wood. Cinematographers used wide shots to emphasize his movement, keeping attention on his antics, not his scalp. He treated his wigs with humor. Bing Crosby once recalled Kaye joking about having a scalp stunt double. But the care was serious. For Kaye, every detail mattered. His wigs weren't concealing insecurity. They were enabling joy. And for a man who made the world laugh, that was more than enough. 16. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo didn't just act. She mesmerized. Her soft, golden waves framed a face sculpted for shadows. In Camille, she drifted through love like a phantom. In Queen Christina, she became royalty with a whisper. But as the cameras adored her, something was slipping away. Her hair. Garbo's retreat from Hollywood wasn't just artistic. It was personal. According to Barry Paris's Garbo, 1990, her hair began thinning in her early 30s, likely due to stress and her refusal to follow beauty routines imposed by the studio machine. She had no patience for hot irons or curling combs. By the time she filmed Grand Hotel in 1932, she wore custom wigs, crafted by MGM's top designers under Adrian's supervision. These wigs were ethereal, soft curls for Queen Christina, sharp bobs for Ninochka. They framed her mystique like a veil. Garbo embraced headscarves and wide-brimmed hats in public, both style and strategy. In private letters, she admitted to friends like Salka Viertel that maintaining her image felt like a quiet kind of suffocation. The wigs weren't to impress, they were to protect. Garbo's withdrawal from film at age 36 wasn't a fall from grace. It was a choice. To keep the illusion intact. To remain untouched. Her wigs were part of that solitude, a barrier between myth and reality. Even in candid photos decades later, she wore turbans with elegance. The world never saw her hair fade. Only her legend remained. 17. Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston's biblical jawline and commanding glare made him the face of epics. In Ben-Hur, his chariot tore through history. In the Ten Commandments, he parted seas with conviction. And in every frame, his thick brown mane followed behind like a crown of destiny. But by the late 1960s, the tides were turning, on screen and on scalp. Heston's hair loss began gradually, evident in behind-the-scenes photos from Planet of the Apes. According to In the Arena, his own autobiography, Heston mentioned jokingly how he parted his hair with a makeup brush and hope. By Soylent Green, 1973, studio memos from MGM indicated the use of professionally styled toupees, tailored to match Heston's signature locks. Wigmaker Paul Hunt, in a 1970s interview archived in the Hollywood Haircraft Journal, described Heston's wigs as stoic and built for sweat. They were heat-resistant, glued tightly for intense action sequences. Heston himself wasn't ashamed. He saw wigs as tools of the trade. A character has a face, and if the face needs hair, you give him hair, he once said in a press roundtable. It wasn't vanity, it was craftsmanship. He rode into history on chariots, wielded rifles, and shouted commandments. With a wig, no one noticed. Because what truly mattered was the fire in his eyes, not the strands on his head. Hollywood's golden age wasn't built on truth. It was built on belief. These 17 stars crafted illusions so seamless, we never questioned the shine. Wigs weren't vanity. They were survival, performance, and power. Which reveal stunned you most? Tell us in the comments. And don't miss our next exposé, Plastic Surgery Secrets Before Filters Ever Existed. Subscribe for more untold legends.